War Thunder servers, esports ready. Join now for free. Oh yeah. It's so bad. Hello there and welcome back to War Thunder. Today for your pleasure I'm playing in a little bit of a kill compilation, the T-72AV TURMS-T. I could easily title this video First Impressions, but it would be kind of not the very truth, because it would be the first video of me making about this tank, but in fact I've played very similar tanks already in the Soviet/Russian tech tree all over the place, like dozens of them. And I'm not exaggerating. Now, this is not a rant or trying to let the tank look bad. In fact, I got some enjoyable battles here and there. But for me, a person that actually likes diversity, this tank is not what I would describe as something new. The T-72 has several tech tree variants already in the game, and when you also think about the T-64 and T-80, etc., you know, and all the variants, they're very similar. It begins with the outer shape, the ammunition loadout, the gun statistics, the gun handling, the mobility. There are slight variations here and there, but overall it's the same story. So first of all, let's talk about the gun. And this tank has the 125mm 2A46M cannon. It carries 44 rounds of ammunition. You have some grenade launchers for smoke, a heavy machine gun, a light machine gun. You have excellent thermal imaging for both your commander and gunner, which is quite nice. And then, yeah, let's talk about the gun handling, right? 20 degrees per second of turret traverse, not really great. Western MBTs approach 30 to 40 degrees per second. Gun depression, -6 degrees. Gun elevation, 30 degrees. Pretty limited, but somewhat better than some other Soviet/Russian MBTs that are limited to 5 degrees. Reload rate 7.1 seconds. Well, that's the typical Soviet autoloader, right? And that is great because you don't need an expert/ace qualification with a fully trained crew to get this. So you can get away with not having the expert qualification, which just costs 1.6 million on this tank, I guess, which is expensive. But on the other hand, yeah, you're always having a slower reload in the first engagement than the Western MBTs. Yeah, that's not really great. Then there is your mobility. 41.5 ton tank, which is, you know, very light. But you only have 780 horsepower, giving you a horsepower to ton ratio of less than 20. A lot of the Western MBTs and a lot of the light tanks have around 25 to 30. So especially if you go through mud, this is not great. In a straight line, the tank actually can reach its 60 kilometers per hour, whereas then Western MBTs seem to have a bit more track. Apparently this is because it has all steel tracks, and Western MBTs have those rubber track additions that add drag. So while you are good in a straight line, maneuvering, you always slither around and then you expose your side armor, and just a little bit of the hint of the side armor exposes your ammo rack, all of it, because it's one gigantic ammunition carousel. Or you lose a crew member. Now, if you lose one crew member, not all hope is lost, because you have an autoloader independent from the crew skills, even if you're down to only 2, but repairs get excessively long. And then there is the caveat of the tank having an armor profile that every single Soviet, Russian, or in this case Syrian MBT has, from the T-64A onwards. A gigantic gap with the around the gun breech, the turret ring, the driver's hatch, and the lower glacis. And the side armor is also pretty weak. Also, the crew is always positioned in the same positions. So to pop Soviet, Russian, or in this case Syrian tanks is not really the most difficult of tasks in War Thunder. There is one more thing to add about the mobility. The absolutely horrendous reverse gear of only -4 kilometers per hour. If you get shot, if you get damaged, it takes ages for you to disengage. Very often you can't do this before you get hunted down. and this is something where we are, objectively speaking, not really that competitive at top tier. Yet the tank gets the job done. At the moment, you kind of see as many down tiers as up tiers, and very often, or in the majority of cases, you're fighting either against or with the Germans. So if you fight with the Germans, they just go forward and either obliterate the enemy team before you have a good impact on the gameplay, or they get obliterated and then you're just left alone and you get just swarmed, which is actually your job because, you know, Soviet tanks, don't worry about it. So sometimes you get blind people like these, and then I'm excessively happy about getting a kill. But honestly, this tank has two sides. On the one side, I absolutely love the look of it. I love how it has all this charm of a little bit of a stormtrooper, right? But honestly, I've seen it all already with this tank. If you're a new player in War Thunder, this is your chance to skip the grind and play with the big boys, because you can and will face currently the top MBTs. Another aspect is that you can therefore skip the grind for just $60. But to grind currently with this tank, well, if you have the T-72AV, there is no purpose in grinding this tank or buying it, because the T-72AV fights in a meta where you get less night battles, less helicopter spam, and overall just a little bit of the remaining old school of War Thunder. Yeah, I know a lot of people don't care about this, but honestly, if you have the T-72AV, this as an additional tank, it's not worth the $60. $60 is excessively expensive for premiums in the first place, and it just isn't an XM1 when it came out. It's not a Leopard A1A1 L44, you know, both in the mobility, gun handling, and for the respective battle rating, the firepower. Sure, it has some meme-ish ammunition. This is what I still didn't mention. It has heat FS with 440 millimeters of penetration, but with 905 meters per second at low muzzle velocity. Then we have the 30F26 high explosive round, 42 millimeters of penetration, but again only 850 meters per second. This allows you to lob shells over ridge lines that otherwise you have no chance to hit the enemies, but that's a rather rare situation, and the shell is inherently unreliable, and in city fights, firing through bushes, fences, trees, or when it then comes to the enemy's armor, you know, the tracks, the side skirts, ear protection, composite armor, or any sort of thick armor plating in the first place, will completely absorb the shell. When it works, it's fun, but it's also not guaranteed to hull break stuff. I mean, I've hit light tanks on the tracks and it didn't blow them up. Good for the light tank, not so good for me, right? Sometimes I just go in and surprise the enemy with my aggression, and then I manage to kill them, which is cool, as you can see in this example. Seeing such an example, and you might think, oh wow, what a great tank, I want to do this as well. That's rather the exception, which looks great, that's why I'm showing you. But I also want to always put things into perspective. That's why I have to deal with my awful voice, amongst other things. So the tank is best played with a lot of patience. Stay back, let the enemy rush in, just kill them as you see them. Always have some good firing angles, create crossfires, surprise the enemy, know your weaknesses, adapt to them. It's not really a very flexible tank, but it still gets the job done. Especially if you look at the ammunition. For battle rating 9.7, you get the 3 BM42 AP FSDs round, which should be your main shell. It has amazing muzzle velocity of 1700 meters per second. Together with your great scoping and the thermal imaging for both your commander and gunner, you just can lead incredibly well at long ranges. So it's a very good sniper, especially if you hull down. Now, hull down is both a good thing and a bad thing. First of all, it minimizes your hitting profile. Then again, people are so used with their muscle memory to just shoot at your gun breech in the first place, it doesn't really make a huge difference. In other news, you don't get those maps that often, do you? And a lot of people just don't want to fight in the open because sniping apparently is then boring and everybody just goes for the objective in close quarters fight anyway. I'm not ranting about this, I'm just sharing my experience with you. That was a very unlucky shot, by the way. And I was very lucky that he panicked a little bit. Yeah. So that was a well-deserved kill, I guess. Now, the final verdict on this tank. Yeah, it's an oldie. It's a standard tank, if you will. It's very generic for me. If you are new to War Thunder and you wanna experience the big boys gameplay for only, I guess, $60, you can skip all the grind and really have a very close to the best performance Soviet/Russian/Syrian MBT. It doesn't really get that much better. Yes, there's the T-80U and the T-90A, but both are also kind of lacking the performance versus Western MBTs. So you always have to make this kind of passive playstyle, and you always shoot for the same gun breaches. But you can avoid kind of the frustration of you know, grinding through the entire tech tree by just buying this, which I would not recommend. So you can see it's really weird for me to talk about this tank. In general, as a simple verdict, it's not worth it. It's not good, especially if you have the T-72AV already, because reasons. And on that bombshell, that's already it for me today. So thanks for watching, thanks for listening. Please give the video a like with it, subscribe if you want to see more, share your experience fighting with and or against this tank in the comment section down below, and as usual, we'll see each other on the waves in the skies and on the battlefields of War Thunder.